WTOU football.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, hey, listen, Craig, Jesus, sorry. Craig alluded to it earlier. Literally, Texas A&M and Mizzou had instant success, right? I mean, I think like the first 3 years, Mizzou was in the SEC championship game twice. You know, Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel set the world on fire. I would not be surprised if OU especially did the exact same thing. Like, yeah, has OU been like smoked by Alabama in the playoff? Yeah, but they beat the brakes off Florida last year. It's a bowl game. You can say they were motivated or not, but game planning against Lincoln Riley is scary doing it week to week. Like, you know as well as I do, when all the Garrett getting fired from the Cowboys talk was going on, he was like my favorite choice for an option of that. But Lincoln Riley is borderline genius. And I just don't see how successful LSU or Mississippi, Arkansas are going to be game planning for him with just 5 days of planning. And then on top of that, you don't think Lincoln Riley and Steve Sarkisian are also looking at Nick Saban, however old he is, and saying, okay, listen, a couple more years, he's going to be retiring soon, then it's wide open. Because no one else in the conference is that scary. Sorry, Kirby Smart's not that scary. That's kind of something to be optimistic if you're an OU or a Texas fan.
Craig?
What's the question?
If you're optimistic about this.
He said you have to be optimistic if you're an Oklahoma or Texas fan.
I think Oklahoma can come in and compete. I'm not at all worried about them being able to come and compete. I think, they absolutely could cause some damage. Texas, it remains to be seen what it's going to look like with Steve Sarkisian. So, yeah, I'm not doubting that they can have success. So I think
Oklahoma will win immediately. I don't know about whether they'll win a division or if they'll play for the conference title, and I think Texas will have their opportunities as well if, in fact, they get to a different level with Steve Sarkisian. Andrew, we got to go. Here's the text from the 254 on the same thing. SEC's top-heavy. LSU jumping up every now and then to win, but let's be clear, Alabama's been running that league like Oklahoma ran the Big 12. Georgia can't win any big games. Well, they've won a few, but Florida and Tennessee are not nearly as competitive as they were years ago, especially Tennessee. Everyone tries to make the SEC's middle-of-the-road team seem as though they're tough as anyone else's, and that's not a fact. This is from the 254. I say this, and I feel that Texas and Oklahoma will compete well in the SEC, and I am a Baylor fan.
Yeah, I don't know if I gave the impression that I didn't think they could compete well, but I definitely don't believe that. I think that Oklahoma will move right in, and it may not be one-loss seasons right out of the gates, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was along those lines still with the way things are shaped up right now in Norman. Still TBD on Steve Sarkisian in Texas, and I like your forward thinking as far as like what the landscape could look like here in a few years if you don't really respect, or at least if you don't fear the Kirby Smarts and those types, then yeah, like Saban moving out of the way would be a huge deal and even that playing field, but maybe not if they bring in Dabo, because that would be their first phone call, and he is an Alabama alum, so there's always been those rumors about Dabo eventually taking over, although why would he leave Clemson? And that's an entirely different conversation. But yeah, Oklahoma and Texas are the only two teams that could have made a move like this into this conference and have been well armed enough out of the gates to be able to potentially compete right away. So I'm fascinated by all the scenarios, and I'm fascinated to see probably here in 1 year what that looks like. Though at the same time, if you're Oklahoma, and let's say that this thing fast tracks itself and you are going to be in the SEC as of next year, well, that's going to be a fun first year when Spencer Rattler's probably gone off to the NFL draft, and those things are going to take place. But other teams will lose guys too. But yeah, I fully believe they both can come in and compete. I'm not ready to put them on the level of Bama like no one else would be ready to, but on the level of Georgia and Florida and LSU, for the most part, yeah, Oklahoma especially, absolutely, they can contend with those teams.
I did too. I think that they'll be fine, and they were fine when the Big 12 formed. Oklahoma wasn't very good when it formed. Texas was trying to be pretty good, won the first championship when they upset what was possibly a national championship program in Nebraska.
I think it will be very interesting to see as well. There's so many things that will be, but who fares better in 5 years, Texas or Oklahoma? Who fares better in 10 years? Is Oklahoma still Oklahoma, or does, Lincoln Riley go off to the NFL and all of a sudden they've hired John Blake again? Or, is Steve Sarkisian a giant bust and they struggle and they're having to make that's all stuff that we don't know, and those are all variables that you can't really put anything behind, but they're all possibilities that could happen. So, it's totally uncharted, complete pitch black territory right now, and we're all looking around for answers, but, man, there's just so many different things that could happen.
My feeling on Lincoln Riley has always been, he's going to wind up in the NFL eventually. Because he's such a young guy right now, and that eventually those numbers and for example, if Mike McCarthy, hits the wall in Dallas, I would think that if it's not Kellen Moore, it's Lincoln Riley. And Jerry might go Lincoln Riley just because Kellen Moore would be doing the same thing he's been doing. It's kind of, it's kind of a Wade, Jason Garrett thing again. Or somebody's just going to say, look, Lincoln Riley, here's the Brinks truck, come on. And maybe he wins a title in the SEC, and that's when the Brinks truck just backs up to him. So I don't know. And I think though that I think Oklahoma will make waves right away because they've got the quarterbacks ready to come in too.
Yeah, even if Rattler leaves, there's still plenty. I know there's like 15 5-star guys backing him up, and there won't be that much of a transition. I'm just saying, like, the possibilities of, like, right now Oklahoma looks great on paper, but what do they look like a year from now when they're entering the SEC? I still think they'll look highly competitive, but maybe it's a team that you think takes a couple more losses than they typically would. I don't know, but it's all. A lot to take in, a lot of things to think about, a lot of different scenarios, and there's still a long time to go before the dust actually settles, because the dust just got kicked up 2-3 days ago, and there's a lot of it flying around right now. And Oklahoma and Texas seem to be settling down quite nicely, but there's still a lot of other questions that are out there swirling.
915. There are too many Division I colleges in the state of Texas to all get into the Power 5 football conference. It's a huge state.
Yeah,
it used to be 8.
Well,
now you're down to, what is there? TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, and then A&M in Texas. There's 5, at least for right now. That's not a lot. It used to be a lot more. Florida, which is a hugely populated state, and a pretty big state, with Miami, Florida, and Florida State. That's 3. California has UCLA, Southern Cal, Stanford, and Cal, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think 5 is too many. It used to be a lot, and we'll see what happens.
There are a lot of other Texas teams on that verge, like Houston, for one, would be a team. SMU, they want to knock on the door as well. And then there's a lot of up-and-coming schools, like a UTSA, for example, that's relatively new still. But, yeah, it's a crowded field. But, I'm with you. I don't think that those 5 are too many, and I think they've all proven at one time or another that they can play and hang and compete, and even in many cases – like Baylor and men's basketball, win titles. So, I don't think it's too much, but can they all end up together? That might be, that's obviously not going to happen. There's going to be even more of a split than there was before when A&M decked off. So, I don't know. I don't know what to think about where they're all going to end up, but I think they'll probably end up band up together unless there's a requirement like the Pac-12 on the Tier 1 that prevents that from happening.
The 915, I forgot about Stanford. Do you think Cal's a Power 5 in any sport? They're in the conference. It doesn't matter how they perform. You can say that about other schools as well. Some perform better in some of the non-revenue sports. But if you're in the Pac-12, ACC, Big Ten, SEC, and whatever's the Big 12 right now, yes, you're a Power 5 school, or Brigham Young and Notre Dame. Back in a moment, SicEm365 Radio.